It's a brand new episode of C&B here on the NDTV network. Thank you for joining me. I am Siddharth Vinayak Patankar. We will start today with something nice and juicy for you. It's a new SUV that's all set to arrive in India and it's all electric. It is from Mercedes-Benz, the EQB. Yes, that's a new monster, something we've got to get used to. It's going to change things because it will also become the first 7-seater SUV when it arrives. Here is my complete review from Stuttgart. The dawn of a new era at Mercedes-Benz globally as the company pushes out one new electric car after another. The Mercedes-Benz EQB is the compact yet roomy offering based on the GLB class in some ways. There are three variants on the EQB here in the German market. You get the EQB 250, which is front-wheel drive only. You then have the 300, which is 4MATIC, but has a little bit less power. Similar kind of range though to the 350, which gives you the most powerful performance. But in India, which one can we expect? That is the question you have. It's not the 250, it's not likely to be the 350. What we should really be thinking about is the 300 because it's a sort of best of both worlds kind of thing. And yes, being an SUV from Mercedes-Benz in India, it's hardly likely that we'll ever get one that does not have 4MATIC on it. I am in Stuttgart and testing the vehicle's top spec, the EQB 350 4MATIC. But the dynamics and overall trim are still similar to the 300 that we are getting. Now to begin with, the EQB will be a CBU, which is a completely built import. It will at some point transition to becoming locally built as well. Where I'm going with this is that that's the model that will get even more customization that is India specific. So in the meanwhile, you will get the car that's closer to the stock vehicle available here in Germany with options that are available for the European market. In terms of seat height, you will feel a typical SUV driving position and therefore a driving experience that's more SUV-like. But in terms of the way the car handles, especially its steering, it has a smaller, more compact car feel. To me, both those things being married into one vehicle is actually a good thing because it gives you better maneuverability, more comfort and better on-road dynamics, and yet fulfills that whole requirement of being a big SUV. That's something that everybody really always wants. The EQB shares a fair amount with the Mercedes-Benz GLB, including body panels. That is why the EQB has the same silhouette and stance as the GLB. The EQS is built on an electric-only platform, which means that cars derived from the start just to be electric. The EQC, on the other hand, the first electric from Mercedes-Benz, was definitely a derived platform. It came from the GLC. In this case, you have a somewhat in-between situation. So it's called EVA 1.5, electric vehicle architecture. But the 1.5 shows you that it's kind of 1.5, it's in between, which means that while it is an electric platform in its layout, it still takes a lot of the components from the GLB in this case. So, well, that's just a little bit of a background on this car for you. Now, you see this thick cladding that helps the SUV character always, but you also see this chrome stripe down the middle. That's sort of indicative of where the battery sits in this car, a little nod to the electrification from the stylists. At the back, you see the connected taillights. That's very much on trend, but the way it's laid out and the kind of pattern you have is a signature for the EQB. Given the market trends, it is no surprise Mercedes has been expanding its SUV range, and that reflects on the EV side too. So in India, we of course know the GLA and we know the GLC. We never quite got the GLB. That might change. I will talk about that in just a bit. The point I am trying to make is that it sits in between those two cars in terms of size, and because EQB is based on the GLB in some senses, that's the kind of proportion you're going to get, that's the kind of footprint and size you're going to get. The part that is exaggerated and different to those two is just how big the greenhouse on this car is, just the proportion of glass to metal. It does sit a little bit taller, this car. It does come across, therefore, as having its own character in terms of proportion. EQB badge tells you it's all electric. Even the energy efficient wheel pattern and that particular design, we're not still sure what will come to India, but that looks nice and upmarket. In the front, EQ character, because that design language has now taken its final shape in a sense. You saw the start with the EQC, you've seen it now on the EQS. All black treatment, and this shape of the grille is typical of EQ models, and so is the blue element right here inside the headlamp cluster. The EQB is smart, and this rose gold exterior paint color sure stands out. It also features inside the car's cabin in a big way. The car's interior is distinct enough and yet familiar Mercedes-Benz territory. The cool MBUX double screen layout with attractive graphics and a now familiar functionality. The virtual instrument cluster can be customized to also give you EV specific readouts like battery range, etc. The central touchscreen has connectivity, entertainment, and car feature controls, as you'd expect. It's the sense of space in this cabin that will impress you. All that glass coverage I was talking about earlier, well, it also contributes to that. You get a good view of the outside environment and a sense of airiness in the cabin. Where it could have been better, maybe the seat height itself a little bit better for an SUV and better under thigh support. But you know what? The India spec might have a more plump seat, also one that's more plush than this. You'll probably see a more high-end version of this cabin on the India spec, but good on legroom, great on headroom. And the other big difference that we will get in India, what you see here is the 5-seat version, because of course in Germany that's going to be more popular. But here there is an option of a 7-seat version as well, where the third row is strictly for children. That is what we will get in our market as standard. That will give us the first 3-row electric vehicle in the passenger car space in the country. And the seats will still fold up to give you more boot space if needed. The rose gold accents on the AC vents will be standard for India, by the way. Yeah, that color does stand out and kind of grows on you, doesn't it? It also looks a little upmarket and sophisticated. Now, while the EQB does share a lot with the GLB in terms of components, it's obviously not true in terms of how it drives. There is a distinct difference to the character that comes from any electric car versus its ICE counterpart. Here, it's not just the same car that's been converted in any case, so the dynamics are completely different. The car accelerates very well. You can put it into sport mode to really sort of get that full energetic feeling. It has different modes like every Mercedes, so there's individual, sport, comfort, and eco. On eco is where it suddenly pulls you back. It doesn't give you very quick acceleration, but then of course that's designed to be more efficient, to save some of the battery power. The EQB 350 specs are on your screen, but I have also thrown in the specs of the India-bound variant. The numbers are healthy and the car's performance is more impressive than you would have expected. The battery is a 66.5 kilowatt-hour pack and the car uses an asynchronous motor in the front and a permanently excited synchronous motor at the rear. Having two separate motors for the front and back really does enhance the overall handling feel. You get a much better sense of grip than what you'd expect from a car of this height and size. And the steering just complements that effort, making it a lot more fun to drive than I had expected. Yes, there is a distinct advantage that the 4MATIC system gives you, and that is different in an EV for sure, given the instant availability of torque. Regenerative driving is a pretty common thing on all electric vehicles. It is exactly like that with the EQB2. But while it's kind of similar to the system we saw on the EQC, here there is one difference in the different levels of regeneration that you can achieve, because you do use the paddle shifters. You can go D plus, where there's absolutely no resistance and you get no regeneration whatsoever, or then you can go to D, where you get a little bit of that resistance and therefore a little bit of the energy gets recuperated. And then you got D minus, which is almost single pedal driving. Now all of that is similar to what you had on the EQC. Where it gets different is that there is no D minus minus. So what you have is something called D auto. D auto, that's a mode where the car literally sort of gauges all the temperature and climatic conditions. It also gauges what the navigation is telling it in terms of data, and also what it's picking up in terms of any kind of traffic information. And it gives you the right kind of regeneration that it would require. So it kind of errs on the side of more regeneration, but it does it all automatically. The auto mode is actually pretty smart, and if you don't drive with a very heavy foot, you get better range. The claimed mileage by WLTP standards is 419 kilometers. In India, we should expect a similar claim on the car. The GLB is also a car that's being considered for India. Finally, the Jalebi, as I have called it in the past. And of course, that means that effectively the EQB kind of replaces the EQC. Not just in India, by the way, that'll happen pretty much worldwide. The great part about this car is going to be its ride quality, its SUV feel, its on-road comfort and dynamics. So what's the bad part? You know what? I honestly can't think of one right now, except its potential pricing. Expect the EQB to arrive by the festive season. The GLB may also join it, but there is still a lot to be seen in terms of global model allocation and supply constraints. But for starters, I am looking forward to the EQB 300 4MATIC. To recap, we will get the 7-seater with all-wheel drive as standard and a fully loaded trim. Expect prices to hover in the 85 lakh rupee range, and it will come with a standard wall box charger included in that price. Welcome back to C&B. Now time to talk about the latest Bajaj Pulsar. I say that because the Pulsar family has been expanding and now steps in with the N160. Preetham Bora was in Pune to test ride it and tell you all about it.
The all-new Bajaj Pulsar N160, a motorcycle which Bajaj says will become the entry point into the premium commuter motorcycle segment. The N160 has nothing in common with the NS160 launched 5 years ago. It's still a 160cc, but it's completely new with its edgy new design and new engine and gearbox. With the new N160, Bajaj hopes to take the fight to established rivals in its segment. The design is familiar and near identical to its big brother, the Pulsar N250. Up front is the aggressive and futuristic face with LED DRLs and projector headlamps, and the small bikini fairing flanking the fuel tank. The split seat is wide and is nicely padded for comfort. It also has a low height to suit riders of different heights and build. The part analog, part digital speedometer console may look a generation or two old, but it offers all necessary readouts, including distance to empty and a gear position indicator.
It's a rainy day here in Pune, been raining cats and dogs all morning, all day so far. And we have here the newest member of the Bajaj Pulsar family. Yes, it's the newest member of the family. There's the Pulsar 125, there's the Pulsar 150, there's the Pulsar NS125, NS160, NS200, RS200, Pulsar N250, Pulsar F250, and now we have the Pulsar N160. Quite a long, exhaustive list of models, isn't it? So, as you can see, this one, the design is based on the Pulsar N250. So, it has that edginess in design, give it fresh appeal, but it's not an NS160 clothed in the Pulsar N250's design. It's a completely new motorcycle, new engine, new gearbox, everything completely new. Of course, the design and the bodywork has been shared with the N250. And according to Bajaj, this one has been made to make the Pulsar N160 more accessible, more agile, more fuel efficient. And it's got a lower seat height than the NS160. And of course, it's lighter, easier to handle, so that you can use it on your everyday riding and on your daily commute quite easily.
Cranking the engine up, what is immediately likable is the bassy note from the underbelly exhaust. On the move, the Pulsar N160 immediately impresses with its refined engine and nice road manners. The new engine is smooth, probably the smoothest in any entry-level Pulsar in a long time. Gear shifts are slick and precise, and the 5-speed transmission complements the engine's refinement. There's enough low and mid-range grunt to keep things interesting in traffic, and the spread of torque of the engine is nice and wide, so there's plenty of shove till the mid-range. From a standstill to about 70 to 75 km per hour is achieved quite effortlessly. The Pulsar N160 offers a comfortable and a fairly upright riding position with slightly rear set foot pegs. Coupled with its lightweight, refined performance and agility, it's an impressive motorcycle while filtering through traffic. And when the going gets rough, the Pulsar N160 can take everything in its stride quite effortlessly.
The new Pulsar N160 is quite light on its feet, it's agile, it's easy to handle in traffic if that's the kind of riding you'll be doing. And the engine is quite tractable, so if you're in city speeds, quite nice. Gear shifts are slick, no complaints there. Quite a nice engine actually in the low and mid range. But the problem is if you seek a top end performance beyond 70 km per hour speed, that's when the N160 feels a little lethargic to me.
As a daily rider primarily for in-city duties and even the occasional longish ride, the new Pulsar N160 certainly makes for an impressive product in its segment. The ergonomics are sporty but not too aggressive. The dual channel ABS works well and the tires offer decent grip even in the wet. In all, the new Pulsar N160 certainly ticks all the right boxes as a very good premium commuter motorcycle, and there's little to find fault with it considering the target consumer in its segment.
So Bajaj wants to offer a more accessible, friendlier, lighter, agile, more agile and a fuel economical motorcycle in the new N160. Well, of course, you like the design language, you can certainly consider the new Pulsar N160. Personally for me, the NS160 looks more appealing, which is sculpted design than this. But that's again subjective, it's up to you whether you like this design or not. Overall, it's not a bad bike, it's a nice bike to ride every day in the city. But the problem the N160 faces is the competition, because it goes up against very well-rounded products like the Suzuki Gixxer and the TVS Apache RTR 160 4V. That's where it lacks, because low and mid-range it's fine, but if you're looking for top-end performance, that's where it fails to really wow you.
Priced at 1,28,000 rupees ex-showroom for the top-spec dual-channel ABS variant, the new Pulsar N160 makes for a well-rounded and refined package in the premium commuter segment, and now has all the qualities to take the fight to the very best in its segment.
That's the new Pulsar. Now, cars like the Lexus NX that I am with become relevant in the context of that EQB that I showed you at the start of the show. So react to that car. Tell me what you think about the arrival of such vehicles, because plug-in hybrids and electrics will become more and more relevant going forward, and not just in the premium space. So you can reach me at Sid Partankar on Twitter. And remember, all the details of everything you see here are on carandbike.com. With that, promise me you'll wear your seatbelts and join me next week.